In this video, we're going to be looking at some basic operations that we can perform on strings in PHP. And the first operation we're going to be looking at is concatenation. Concatenation is simply a process of joining two strings together, either as variables or joining a string to a variable. And to actually see how concatenation works, I'm going to go into processing_strings_start.php, the file we're going to be using for this practice. And I'm going to just remove the comments around this piece of code I have here. I've created 4 strings, and these are the strings we're going to be working with. Now, the first thing I'm going to be doing is trying to join my string 1 to my string 2. My string 1 says the queen brown fox, and it has a space here. And my string 2 says jumped over the lazy dog. So I'm just going to be joining these 2 strings to make one single statement. To do that, I'm going to create a variable called join. I'm going to set join to equal string 1. Now, to perform the concatenation operation, we would need to use the concatenation operator, and the concatenation operator is simply a period, that is a dot. So after the string 1, I'll just put a period, and ensure that you don't put a space before the period. Just put the period immediately after your variable or your string, and what immediately follows is the second string. That will be string 2. Yeah, and that's also it. That's simply how you concatenate these 2 strings. To see the effect of this, we're going to echo it out with an echo statement. Just going to say echo join. Into echo join. Save. I'm going to our browser. I have opened here processing_strings_start.php, the file we're using, containing chapter 3 folder. And when we refresh, we see the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. So the 2 strings now appear as a whole because we have concatenated them into a single string. So that's how concatenation works, and it's really going to come in handy in a lot of ways. The next thing we're going to be looking at is a PHP function called strlen. And what this function simply does is that it returns the length of a particular string that is passed in. It returns the length of a string value that is passed in. Now, to see how that works, we'll go into processing_strings_start.php, and first I'm going to comment out the echo line that echoes out join. I'm going to be working with string 3. I'm going to create a variable called length, and I'm going to call the strlen function and pass in my string 3. It's going to say string 3 and with a semicolon. And to see that in my browser, I'm going to just simply echo out length. Echo out length and save. When I save, go into my browser, fresh, and it gives me 5. It gives me 5. And if we do a check on that in our code, we'll see that this string actually contains 5 characters. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this can come in very handy. For example, when you want your users to register on your site and you want them to enter a password, you want them to enter a value for a password, but you don't want the password to be less than a particular number. Probably you don't want them to be less than 6 characters. You might want to actually check the length of the string that the user types in, and if it meets your criteria, you would register your user. But if it doesn't meet your criteria, you simply echo out an error message to the user telling him or her that he or she did not meet the required criteria. Now, one thing to note is that strlen function actually counts spaces, that's character spaces, as a character. It counts spaces as characters. Now, in this string, that's string 3, if I go to the end, that is after E, and put 1 character space and save, then if we go back into the browser and refresh, see that I now get 6. I get 6 because the space I just added is now counted as a character. So PHP now assumes that the string contains 6 characters. So you want to be very careful with that when you're working with the strlen function, because you know that it will actually take in empty spaces as string characters. So that's that for length. And the third function we're going to be, or rather the third thing we're going to be looking at is the explode function. We're going to be looking at the explode function. Now, the explode function is a very, very cool PHP function, and what it basically does is that it takes in a string and it has the ability to create an array out of that string. It has the ability to break the string into separate parts and make each one of them values in an array. Now, to use the explode function, we're going to go back into processing underscore strings underscore start.php, and I'm going to be working with the fourth string, that's string 4. First, I'm going to echo out the line that echoes out length. I'm going to come here. Then I'm going to create a variable that says string array. I'm going to set this variable equal to the explode function. Now, the explode function basically takes in 2 arguments. It can take in 3 arguments, but we're only going to be looking at 2 most important arguments, and most of the time these are the only 2 arguments that are going to be needed in the explode function. Now, the first argument is your separator. The first argument is your separator. That is the character that is going to be separating each piece of string, because here we're going to be splitting our string and we will need a character to separate the string into different parts. Now, I intentionally put the comma here because I want the comma to actually be the character that will be separating the different part of my string, so that I now have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts in my string. So the first thing that goes in is the separator, and this you put it within strings. So I'm going to put my comma because that's a separator. And after my comma, the next argument you put in is the string in question, and in this case it's string 4. That's the string you're working on, the string you want to split. I'm going to save that. Then I'm going to just print this out using the print r function because it's an array, and I'm going to now type in my variable string array. String array. I'm going to save that. So as you can see, I've used the explode function on my string using the comma as my separator, and now I'm printing out the array string array, my string array variable, using the print underscore r function. I'm going to save the page and go into my browser, refresh the page, and you see now we have our array with the keys and the values. We have 1, we have 2, 3, 4. To see this in a much better way, I'm going to be echoing out an HTML tag, the HTML pre-tag. You can just get to say pre. This is just to make this more readable. Let's say pre, and here I'm going to come down and close the pre-tag. Close the pre-tag. Save. When I go into my browser and refresh the page, you see it now appears in a more readable way. I have the keys. 0 is attached to 1, 1 is attached to 2, 2 is attached to 3, and 3 is attached to 4. These are the parts of my string. I've broken down into 4 parts: 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's basically how the explode function works, and it's going to come in very, very handy when you're collecting data from a database and you want to actually output it in an HTML list, or pretty much any way that you want to use it in your application. The explode function comes in very, very handy.